Have you ever felt a pain so sharp and yet so silent that you couldn't even put it into words? Not because someone hit you, not because of what they did physically, but because someone you loved, someone you trusted, made you feel invisible. They didn't scream, they didn't hit, they just slowly stopped showing up for you. They stopped hearing you, stopped holding space for the version of you that needed love the most. And the worst part, you still kept loving them because you didn't know how to stop. You held on to memories, to promises, to the way they used to be. You told yourself, they're just going through something. They didn't mean it. They'll come around, but they didn't. And every time you stayed, it cost you a little more of yourself. That's what no one prepares you for. How deeply the people you love the most can damage you because they know where your heart lives. And when they pull away, they don't just leave to take pieces of you with them. You start to wonder if maybe it's you. Maybe you're too emotional, too dramatic, too much. But here's the truth you need to sit with, even if it's hard. It wasn't your fault. They just didn't know how to love you right. You were loving someone with an open heart. They were loving you from their wounds. That's why it always felt like a battlefield, not a bond. Because every time you got close, they pushed. Every time you needed more, they gave you less. And every time you tried to fix it, they made it your fault. It's exhausting to love someone who confuses vulnerability with weakness, who uses silence as punishment, who makes you feel like needing them is a burden. But still, you stayed because your love was real. Your loyalty was deep, and your heart believed in who they could have been, not who they showed you they were. But what happens when believing in someone starts breaking you? It's what happens when their love becomes a storm that never stops raining, and you forget what the sun even feels like. That's when you start shrinking. You start walking on eggshells. You silence yourself just to keep the peace. You stop asking for things you deserve because you're afraid they'll call you too much. The trap, the moment when love turns into quiet suffering, because now you're not just hurt, you're stuck. You want to leave, but your heart keeps making excuses for them. You want to heal, but you're trying to do it in the very place that keeps cutting you, and you start living in this cycle. They hurt you, you forgive them, they do it again. You stay silent. Why? Because you were taught that love means endurance, that loyalty means never giving up, that real love sticks around no matter what. But here's the truth that will change everything. Loyalty to someone who's hurting you is not love. Self-betrayal. They don't need to hit you to hurt you. Emotional pain cuts just as deep, sometimes deeper. And when the pain comes from someone you gave your heart to, it doesn't just hurt. It rewrites how you see yourself. You start to think maybe love is supposed to hurt. Maybe being confused and anxious is normal. Maybe all relationships feel like walking through a minefield. But that's not love, okay? That's survival. And you weren't meant to survive love. You were meant to be held by it, healed by it, restored by it. So if you've been shrinking just to keep someone close, you've been silencing your needs because you're afraid of being left, then hear this loud and clear. The love you're chasing should not come at the cost of losing yourself. Because one day, you're going to wake up and realize you don't recognize the person in the mirror anymore. And that will hurt more than any heartbreak, because you didn't just lose them, you lost you. But here's the part they don't expect. When you finally see it, when it finally clicks, that they're not going to change, that your heart deserves better. Their version of love is too small for the size of your soul. That's when something shifts. It's quiet at first, just a whisper inside you that says, this isn't love. And once you hear that voice, you can't unhear it. You start to question everything you tolerated. You start to feel angry, not just at them, but at yourself. Not because you were weak, but because you were trying so hard to be loved. You didn't notice how badly you were bleeding. But that realization, that moment of awakening, is the beginning of your return. It's the start of healing. The moment you stop begging someone to love you and start remembering how to love yourself again. You start remembering the version of yourself that didn't always feel anxious, the version that didn't overthink every word, every silence, every pause in their tone, the version that didn't live in constant fear of being abandoned. And that version, she's not gone. He's not broken. They're just buried beneath all the love you gave that never got returned. But here's the beautiful thing. When you finally decide to walk away from the pain, you're also walking back toward yourself. That's what they don't see. They thought you needed them. They thought your world would fall apart without them. But what they didn't know is that you weren't walking away because you didn't love them anymore. You were walking away because you finally started loving you. And that kind of love, that's the most powerful thing in the world, because it doesn't depend on approval. It doesn't seek permission. It doesn't ask, am I enough? It says, I've always been enough. You just weren't capable of seeing it. That's not arrogance. That's clarity. It's healing. And healing doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes healing looks like cutting ties. Sometimes it looks like blocking a number you memorized by heart. Sometimes it looks like sitting alone on a Friday night instead of going back to the same cycle. But healing also looks like peace, like sleeping without crying, like smiling without faking it, like breathing without tiptoeing around someone's moods. Because once you stop tolerating love that hurts, you make space for love that heals. You make space for friendships that feel safe, conversations that aren't games. It's connection that doesn't demand you to shrink. And here's what might surprise you. The deeper your healing goes, the more compassion you'll find for yourself, and maybe even for them. Not because they deserve it, but because you no longer need to carry the weight of anger to prove you were hurt. Your pain was real, but it's not your identity. You're not the broken one. It's not too sensitive. You're not too emotional. We're just loving people who didn't know how to hold what you gave. And now you're done bleeding for people who never even brought a bandage. You're done bending so far that you forget your own shape. You're done romanticizing pain and calling it passion. You're done confusing intensity for intimacy, because real love doesn't hurt like that. It doesn't gaslight you, doesn't disappear when you speak your truth, doesn't turn your love into a weapon. Real love stays. Love listens. Real love grows with you, not against you. So if someone made you feel like you were too much, let them go find less. If someone only showed up when they needed you, but disappeared when you needed them, let them keep walking. If someone confused your silence for weakness, they clearly underestimated your strength. Because here you are, still standing, still healing, still rising. And you didn't just survive them. You found yourself in the ruins they left behind. You picked up the pieces they shattered. You sewed your heart back together with your own hands. You cried, you screamed, you doubted, but you never gave up on yourself. And that's power they will never understand. You didn't become cold. You became clear. Clear about who you are. Clear about what you deserve. Clear about what love is and what it is not. You may not have gotten closure. You may not have heard the apology. You may still wonder why they changed. But here's the truth. Closure doesn't come from their mouth. It comes from your decision to stop needing it. You close the chapter by choosing peace over chaos. Close it by letting go of the need to make them understand. You close it by walking away from the version of you that begged to be seen, and walking into the version that sees herself clearly, fully, fiercely. You're not hard to love. You are just loving the wrong person with all the right pieces of your heart. And now, those pieces are yours again, to protect, to nurture, to rebuild. So let this be your reminder. You didn't lose them. They lost someone who loved them completely. Someone who would have stayed through the fire if only they knew how to hold you in the rain. You loved them hard. But now, it's time to love yourself harder. because you deserve love that doesn't come with conditions, that doesn't play the Tug war with your peace, that doesn't leave you wondering if you're too much. You're never enough. You are enough. Right now, right here, exactly as you are. And anyone who made you question that, they were the lesson. You are the healing. You are the rise after the wreckage. You are the comeback after the collapse. And the next version of you is unshakable. Because now you know the people you love the most can hurt you the deepest, but they can also teach you how deeply you deserve to be loved the right way. If this hit you in a way no one else could, it's not an accident. It means you needed to hear it. Don't walk this journey alone. Subscribe now for more real talks on love, loss, and rising stronger than ever. And if you know someone whose heart is still aching, share this video with them. Let them know they deserve a love that heals, not one that hurts. Because your worth isn't defined by the wounds they left, is revealed by the strength you carry forward. See you in the next one. The end.